funny. Yeah. Today I'm going to kind of foreshadow our upcoming unit, and then we'll spend some time on a main activity checking out a poem. So first, what we're doing next. I read your feedback on the survey. Thank you to everyone who submitted that. And I mentioned on Tuesday that I'm interested in kind of giving you a break from some of the older works that we've been looking at and having you read some more contemporary stuff. So that's what we're going to be working on next. This is something new. I haven't done it before. I'm not quite sure how it'll work, but I think it'll work out well. I think you'll find it valuable. Our next unit is going to be kind of book club unit. So what does that mean? Basically, it means I'm going to give you a list of 6 books. You're going to choose one book from that list. That'll be your primary text for the unit. So it'll be structured a little differently. It's not going to be like, here's Mr. Luna asking questions about this book. You have to memorize facts and spit them back. It'll be more based on you reading, and this will become sort of a replacement for independent reading just for this unit. We'll do some reading in class, and you'll have different ways to show your understanding of the whatever book you pick. And I tried to pick books that were more recent, more kind of diverse perspectives, greater selection of topics that might appeal to a lot of different people and sensibilities. So I'm going to go over that first, and you'll have a chance today and the rest of the week to think about which book you would want to read and pick one out. So let me pull up the list. This is all on Canvas, by the way, but let me share with you the ones I picked out. I was limited by the books available in our school book room, so it's not necessarily things I would ideally pick, but everything I picked, I think it's stuff either I've read and enjoyed or things that I know students have read and enjoyed in the past. Okay, here we go. So I put together this list with summaries provided from the website Goodreads. I'm not going to read them all out loud, but you could take some time and read them later on. And you probably should poke around online, Google these books, read some reviews, read a little bit about them before you make a decision. You can change them, but after about a week or so, you're going to have to stick with whatever you pick. So first one is The Kite Runner. This one I have read and definitely endorse. It was written in the kind of post 9/11 world from the perspective of this boy growing up in Afghanistan. So if you want to read something that's sort of about family and immigration, this is a good read. Would recommend it. Next one, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. This is from the perspective of a boy who has autism, and kind of like it's what kind of like his perspective on the world, like interprets things very logically. And one day he notices that his neighbor's dog is gone, and he embarks on this adventure where he tries to find out where the dog went. It's a little more realistic, but the cool thing about it is it puts you in this kid's perspective. It's well written. It's interesting. I haven't read this one, Six of Crows. I hear lots of really good things about it, though. It's more of a fantasy, kind of high fantasy heist novel. So if you like The Hobbit, that kind of thing, you might enjoy this. I keep hearing from students about how great it is. Next up is The Sun is Also a Star. I know that a few people were reading Everything, Everything for independent reading. This is by the same author. This is more like a contemporary romance novel between these two kids, Natasha and Daniel, both from kind of immigrant backgrounds, supposed to be very good. Next, House of the Scorpion. This is more of a dark dystopian futuristic sort of story. And Life of Pi is the last one. Life of Pi is kind of interesting. It's sort of like a spiritual, philosophical kind of novel. The premise is that the main character Pi is on a boat traveling across the Pacific Ocean. It sinks. He survives in this lifeboat, but he's not alone. He's in the boat with a tiger, and it's kind of interesting, like him surviving here with the tiger. It's kind of a reflection on humanity and nature, and it's good. I would recommend that one. If any of you choose this one, I'm especially interested in hearing your perspective on it because I'm thinking of teaching it as a core text next year. So let me know what you think about that. Okay, so those are your books. I'm sort of curious to hear if any of you have read any of those, if you want to provide an endorsement or anything like that. Katie says Six of Crows is good. Yeah, that's what people say. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw the movie for the Life of Pi. I'm pretty sure there's a movie like similar to it.
Yeah, there is I haven't seen the movie. I know there is one. There's a movie of The Kite Runner too. I also haven't seen that, but yeah, some of these have movies. So look over those, make a decision about which of those you'd like to read. When you decide, in Canvas, there's a link for a Google form where you could indicate your top choices. So I only have a limited number of each of these. Some of the books are available online. So for example, if you want to read The Kite Runner, there's a PDF on it online, so it doesn't matter. Some of the other books, I only have a certain number of copies, and I'm not sure if it's available online. So I'll try to make sure everyone can get like either their top pick or at least their second, but no promises there. But I'll try to get something that's at least in your top three. Okay. So when you look through that and make a decision, you can click on this, pick your novel for the book club, and you'll just rank them with your top choice on top. And then once I get everyone's feedback, I'll try to figure it out and sort it out. So that means we'll have to coordinate you guys picking up books if you're picking one that you just have physical copies. If you're on hybrid, then it's not a problem. When you come into class, then you can get it. If you are virtual, then you'll either have to, I could leave them at the front of the desk and you could pick them up, or we'll have to arrange something else like that. Just maybe you could have a friend pick it up and drop it off to you. We'll figure something out. But by the end of the week, it would be nice if you made a decision and indicated which of these you wanted to read. Okay. If you already have a copy at home, then no problem. You could just read that. That would be great. So right now we're just kind of in the book picking phase, and then when we get closer to the start of that unit, I'll explain what day-to-day that'll look like. All right. Any other questions? Anything like that? All right, great. So then that's the book club unit, and we'll move now to our main activity for the day. Okay, so like I mentioned, today and tomorrow, I'm just kind of doing shorter works that I normally would have done before, but I'm going to do them now, sneak them in. So we're going to have kind of a mini unit on poetry. Today we're going to read this poem, Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. Some of you might recognize that name. She's the author of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. It's a very famous American novel. And this is one of her poems from, she wrote it in the 70s. It's become a sort of an anthem. You'll hear it read at ceremonies. If you go online, you'll see lots of celebrities reading it and talking about the impact it's made on their lives. So we'll look at that in particular, her use of metaphor, her use of tone. And for homework, just again, look through that list, pick a book for the book club by the end of the week. So it's been a while since we read a poem in here. I think maybe the last time we did was Ozymandias when we were doing Gilgamesh. Right? So I do have like a pretty regular routine that I do for poetry teaching, and I'll go through that with you again. So I just want to talk a little bit about what we try to notice when we're looking at poems. So you can think about different levels or depths of analysis when you're trying to understand a complex piece of writing. Right? So Still I Rise, like I said, it's incredibly famous. It has resonated with lots of people. And it's just like a kind of moving, inspirational poem. And it shows mastery of language, right? And this is what this class is all about, understanding how you can use just words on a page, like sounds, but in the right combination, you could create an emotion, or you could, change the world just through these words. So how do you do that? That's what we're thinking about here. So when you're analyzing something, the easiest thing to do is to just answer the question, what is being said? Like literally on the surface here, what's the poem about? We want to do more than that. We want to go to the level of how it's written. So like what individual word choices, what is the structure, what do the sentences look like, what's the rhyme scheme, what's the rhythm, how does that create what's being said, and how is it that what's written leads to two things? How does it lead to an emotional reaction, and how does it create the ideas that are being conveyed? Right? This is always what we're going to be looking for. So a piece of writing creates an emotional reaction, it conveys an idea, and then as analysts, we're trying to figure out, okay, how did it do that? What decisions were made that led to that end result? So keep that in mind as we begin talking about this. So poetry is meant to be heard, so we're gonna hear this poem be spoken. Luckily, it's relatively recent, so there are videos of Maya Angelou reading it, and that's what we're gonna watch now. This is a video from a while back, and it's nice because she gets like really into it, maybe even too much, but she does a good job performing it. So I think you'll get a kick out of it. This first time through, you don't have to read along if you don't want to. You could just listen, and as you're listening, just think about what your gut reactions are, right? What are your impressions? What are your thoughts about what it means? What's the poem about?
You may write me
All right. I'm just going to turn the lights off for the hybrid people in the room here, and then I'll start. Thank you. Okay, here we go.
down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just because I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops. weakened by my soulful cries. Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just because I laugh, as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your lies, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, all right. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh. Does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise, up from a past rooted in pain I rise, a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling and bearing in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear I rise, into a daybreak miraculously clear I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave and soul. There I go.
All right, so that is Still I Rise. She's a really good reader. It's, I think, really helpful also to hear it read out loud, so you could hear the rhymes, you could hear the alliterations, you could hear the meter and the rhythm of it, and really get a better overall impression. So any initial thoughts, gut reactions to share about how she presented it, or what the poem's about? Yeah, Olivia, go ahead.
It sounds like it has to do with maybe race or discrimination.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the nice things about this too is, as she mentions slavery, so it's like clearly she's tapping into that. It's about discrimination, but she also leaves it pretty broad. Like it doesn't just have to be interpreted like that. You could look at it as any form of oppression for whatever reason, and overcoming that. But yeah, good thought. Any other initial thoughts? Yes, Karina.
This isn't just about this poem, but I always kind of find it, I guess, weird in some instances of poetry that like the actions or like, yeah, I guess kind of the animations that people put with it, I feel like are always a lot more dramatic than they need to be, which isn't a good or bad thing necessarily, but I think that's definitely like that was shown in this as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Part of this is like it's theatrical, and some of you might know about or be interested in slam poetry or spoken word poetry. This is sort of like a precursor to all that, where the poem is really a performance that's being read. Now, not all poetry readings are like that. A lot of them are more straightforward. It's just someone reading it without all the gestures. But there is an element of theatricality that adds an extra layer of meaning to it. Right. Yeah, I think some of her movements are a little over the top. Yeah. It's also a poem about kind of being yourself and embracing yourself, so it makes sense. Okay, any other thoughts before we dig in more? Okay, perfect. So you can find a copy of this poem in Canvas in our January 19th module. I'll just tell you that normally if we were in non-COVID mode, what I would do is give everyone a copy of the poem, have you read it again, and write down annotations on it. I can't do that because you're all at home, so we're going to do this instead. So open up the poem, and then next to the link to the poem, you'll find a link to a Padlet. So we've done Padlet before when we did Greek mythology and you shared what you knew already about Greek mythology. You can see it here, Still I Rise Padlet. Oh, wrong one. You just click on the titles, actually. Go there. So it's a board for you to post your thoughts here about the poem. So we'll do this just to get our ideas out, and this will lead into a more in-depth discussion that we'll have. Okay, so here's what I'm going to ask you to think about. Read it again. Come up with some insights about the poem. By insights, I basically mean annotations, thoughts you have about what the whole poem means or what an individual part means, a line that you find interesting, maybe a connection you can make to some other work of art or a moment in history, a literary device you notice and its purpose, anything like that. Any ideas about the poem are fair game. We're just here trying to generate thoughts and generate your own unique thoughts, right? I want you to have some ideas, right? Think for yourself, see what you notice. I want everyone to put at least one thought on the Padlet, okay? And we'll use that as a springboard for a deeper discussion. Okay, so you can get started on that. I'll give you, we'll talk about it at like 12:10 or so, and we'll spend the rest of the period after that discussing. So go ahead. You guys have some great annotations. Looking good. Just take another minute or so to finish up and then we'll talk. Okay, so let's bring it back together. Again, good job of providing a lot of detail in your Padlet thoughts. So just going back to what I said about the levels of analysis, it seems like we're doing a pretty good job of identifying the main feeling and idea she's trying to convey, this idea of resilience and overcoming. But we could, dig deeper down into that and talk about how that idea is conveyed through, particular choices that she makes. One thing I want to point out, clearly this is a poem about overcoming and resilience and adversity. And there are different ways that she could have taken it. I think one thing that's notable about this is it's not a poem that's saying things are bad in the world, people are mistreating me, and those people stink, and I'm going to get revenge on them, which would be a pretty understandable reaction. I think what's notable about it is there's no sort of animosity that she shows to the you of the poem, the intended audience. Rather, it's a sort of smug kind of dismissal of their attempts to undermine her. So let's start there. The first word of the poem is you. You may write me down in history. That's the intended audience, right? Aside from us. So who is this you that she's talking about? It's not a specific person necessarily, but what is that kind of person that she's directing this to? What kind of beliefs do they have? I feel like this is a question that you all know the answer to, but no one's raising their hand. Thank you, Alex.
I'm guessing it's like the person, like just like a overall, not specific person, but just an example of someone that's like critiqued her on appearance and just personality overall.
Yeah, good. I don't think it's necessarily a specific person either. Rather, it's a whole like societal attitude of saying like, oh, this person is like this, therefore we shouldn't take them seriously. We shouldn't allow them to advance. And again, like you could look at this through any lens. It could be a racial barrier, it could be an ethnic barrier, a gender barrier, it could be just any sort of barrier for whatever reason people are trying to delegitimize someone else. And she's saying, yeah, I'm gonna have none of that. What else did you notice? What stands out to you here in terms of specific lines or how it's written? Yeah, Emma.
I said that like I like how she used like
The greater person, like how she described how she was like the sun of the gods, and that's like making her the sun and how she think of it as greater than herself, and this powerful
Mm-hmm.
thing that no one can amount to. So it kind of just makes the poem sound powerful and like very gets her
thought.
Yeah, great. I totally agree, and I'm glad what you're picking up on is her use of metaphor and description. And what's interesting is there's a pattern there in the sorts of metaphors that she uses. They convey power, like you're saying, one thing I find interesting is, second stanza, she says, does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Why are you annoyed with me? And the reason is because I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. So that's an interesting simile. I mean, what do you think it means for someone to walk like they've got oil wells pumping in their living room? It's just kind of a funny image, but what do you think that's trying to convey? Yeah, Kendall.
Does that have something to do with money and like how much money there is in the oil industry?
Yeah, I think part of it is that oil suggests money, absolutely, and suggests wealth. Also, let me ask, she says, does my sassiness upset you? Right? She's directing that to the you, this person who's trying to put her down. Why would her sassiness upset that person? What would that person like want her to feel? All right, go ahead, Kendall.
The person would want her to feel kind of defeated and knocked down and just unable to get over her past and stuff. And by being sassy, it's kind of showing how she's not hindered by what they want her to be hindered by.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, think of a bully who's going to take delight in seeing their victim upset. If your goal is to make your victim upset, and instead they're just kind of shrugging it off and laughing, like they're going to get annoyed. They're like, I'm trying to make you upset and you're not upset. Why aren't you doing what I want you to do? So kind of she's suggesting the ultimate rejection of oppression isn't to feed into what they want. It's to do the opposite of what they want, right? Meet their replies with lightness. Okay. But, oil wells pumping in the living room, yeah, suggests wealth. You might see a pattern there also. Later on, she says, because I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard, and I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs. What do you notice about all these metaphors? They all suggest wealth, like has been said. Any other similarities to them? Well, where do all those come from? They have a common origin. Oh man, okay, so they're all like gold, oil, diamonds. They're all natural resources, right? And then what do you know about how diamonds are made or how oil is produced? Oil is made, I should say, like in the earth.
You have to drill or mine.
So you do have to dig down in there to get it. So it does take some effort to find it. Karina, is that what you were going to say too?
I was going to say like time and pressure.
Yeah, so that's what I think as well. So like diamonds, the idea of, diamonds are used often metaphorically to mean like something beautiful that comes from intense pressure and time. So I think with the same thing with like oil, pressure, time, stress, transformed organic matter into oil. So it's like through the adversity, through the pressure that she's receiving from the world, she's turning that into something great, something immensely valuable. And it's sort of like a natural resource for her. It's part of her, it's part of the world, right? Her resilience is like the thing that's going to make her wealthy or better. We have like a minute left. There are other things I would like to point out, but I'll just end by asking anything else that stood out to you, anything else you noticed, or liked about how it was written. Okay, well, I'll just say, end with, I like the last 3 lines, I rise, I rise, I rise, kind of showing that contrast between where she has been, out of the huts of history, up from the past that's rooted in pain, you know, rising to something better. We'll leave it there. Thank you guys for your attention today. Tomorrow we'll continue on with exploring poetry. Fill out those that questionnaire and rank your book choices. I'll see you all then. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.